The traditional ways of going to get a career are completely changing. It's no longer having to graduate high school, go for college for 4 to 8 years in order to be someone. Nowadays, there's more entrepreneurs and more ways in order to become successful. This next guest was able to defeat all the odds by skipping college and believing in himself. Give it up for Ruben Escobedo. Hey, so what's going on, Ruben? And welcome to the show. So, for the audience to have an idea of who we are dealing with, who is Ruben Escobedo?
Well, thanks so much for having me, and most welcome to be here. So, Ruben Escobedo is a typical guy that, had a rough upbringing. Parents worked very hard, paycheck to paycheck parents, had to figure out how to make a way through life, and wanted to always be successful because he saw what his parents went through, but didn't have a chance to really finish college because he had to support himself. He had to make sure that, I had bills paid, I had insurance, so college got put aside, and I ended up having to figure out how to make my way in this world without a degree into a lucrative career, something that could really take care of me and my family and put me out of the typical things that my family had fallen into, which is just hourly jobs, not necessarily a career, just clocking in, clocking out, and coming home.
Hmm.
And those are the things that's really at the core of uh, what I'm about and what my story is going to come from today. And then you'll get some sprinkles as we talk with some extra stuff and challenges I faced, whether at home or even coming up as a father and a husband, and trying to still make it in this career and push to that next level.
Okay, so are you first generation, second generation?
Well, I'd be, oh goodness gracious. I guess I'm third generation.
Oh, okay.
From you have my grandparents that were here, then my
Mm-hmm.
mom, my parents, and my aunts and uncles, and then us, the cousins. We were the
Okay.
ones that kind of broke the mold, so to speak. I had my brothers. I have two brothers. Both of them have master's degrees,
Mm-hmm.
and have gone into one's an attorney, one is a therapist, counselor.
Okay.
I have another. Then my cousin has a master's also. He's a therapist as
Mm-hmm.
well. So, we have, the third generation that kind of broke that mold. But I went to college, but I didn't get a chance to finish. There was just too much going on, and I couldn't find the time to do my studies and then also make a career for myself. So I had to say, well, we need the money. I need to figure
Mm-hmm.
out how to earn. Started working on that, and then of course the challenge came. Well, how do you move up in this world that always asks for a degree? Every time you see these awesome jobs with these awesome benefits or awesome pay,
Mm-hmm.
it always says, well, we need a degree or we want a degree. And I knew that I had the work ethic,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, how do I break this mold? How do I figure out how to get past this? And that's I'm one of the ones that kind of did that in the family.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny because I would joke around with my brothers, and they would say, "Well, you don't have a degree," and I'd say, "Yeah, but I make more than you." So it was,
Yeah.
there was a, now as they've gotten better. Don't get me wrong, they've definitely bumped up a bit, but there was quite a bit of time that I was like, "Yeah, but I make more than you," and I'm still up there competing with you, so to speak. If uh, but it was definitely one of the things that as a third generation trying to figure out how do I not just accept that's what life
Mm-hmm.
is going to be? How do I not just accept that this is how hard it's going to be and I'm okay just going to the coast for a vacation
Yeah.
and not doing anything else or looking past that?
Yeah, and I think that's a one challenge that a lot of people don't factor in, right? The first ones that come in, they're just trying to figure out what the environment is like. Then the initial first generation, they're just trying to get a step above that lower income, and then it takes to the second or third where you're kind of like, okay, now I got this whole system down. I have a little bit more of a leg up than my predecessors, and are able to get into a lot more unique situations. So you mentioned the career. What career are you in right now?
So I'm technically in the financial benefits realm, so to speak. So what I
Okay.
do is my focus is on 401ks, what they call pension, and then pension plans or defined benefit plans. So
Mm-hmm.
I work with all retirement plans that a corporation would offer. And I used to be on one side of the business where I worked for the companies like uh, a company like Merrill or Bank of America, and I
Mm-hmm.
was a day-to-day contact for those companies that had the 401ks. But then what I found out is that as these laws were coming into play, not every company could keep up with them. And I thought, there's got to be a company that's looking to have a specialist, someone that actually does this and can
Mm-hmm.
work for that company directly. And then I look to switch and go work for the corporation directly to help them
Mm-hmm.
manage their plans. And for the last 10 years, that's what I've been doing. And
Mm-hmm.
currently, I oversee, I'm with a big gas company and I oversee all of their retirement benefits. So not just the 401ks or the pensions, what they call non-qualified plans, or
Mm-hmm.
they're a little bit less regulated because they offer more contributions to go into them. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a team that manages the day-to-day administration. But I've been in the retirement field now for 24 years.
Oh, okay. And so we talk about the challenges. You one thing that stood out when I reached out to you is that you were able to get in it without a degree. How did that come about?
Yeah, so that was a stroke of luck. I think.
Okay.
Well, I can't say luck. It wasn't luck. So what happened is I was in a career um, working at a merchant like a merchandise store,
Okay.
and I was doing well. I was getting groomed for management. I was in my teens. I was like 19, 20, and I could see that the next move was going to be management with this company.
Mm-hmm.
And I was excited because I thought, man, here I am, 20 years old. I'm going to get groomed. I'm going to be a manager. I could be a store manager. This is a career, and I was fine accepting that. And but one of the concerns was usually when you go in that career in that industry, one, the hours are horrible,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to move where they need you. So if they need you across America, in 2 weeks, you got to go if you're
Yeah.
wanting to move up. And that was something that my wife had grown up with, and she was like, I don't want that life anymore. I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just have to up and move. And so I had to look at, okay, well, what other options do I have? So I'd done well in the career. I was already a supervisor at the age of 21,
Mm-hmm.
overseeing the uh, the bottom line for the company and making sure that we were bringing in money. And it was something that I kind of just naturally fell in. And I started looking at, well, maybe there's something in this area that will offer more education, more opportunity. So one day driving to my now wife, then girlfriend's house,
Mm-hmm.
I passed this sign and it said Capital Group and now hiring. And I had no idea what the company was. I just saw a
Mm-hmm.
sign. So I looked them up, found out they were this mutual fund company, and I thought, well, I don't know anything about the market or mutual funds, but
Mm-hmm.
let me see what I could do because I knew I had a good work ethic. I knew I had great references, and I put in an application, and
Mm-hmm.
lo and behold, I was able to get in. They didn't require a degree. They were looking for experience, and I had
Okay.
customer service experience. So that experience got me into the initial level, which was customer
Mm-hmm.
service. And that's
Okay.
where I started learning the basics, like how to,
Mm-hmm.
I learned about IRAs and I learned about simple IRAs and I learned
Mm-hmm.
about joint accounts and different type of existing accounts. But what I found is that in this world, they weren't looking at a degree once you got in. They were looking at your experience. They were looking
Mm-hmm.
at what could you bring to the table that nobody else could.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very impressed with that because it was the first one of the first major corporations where you had to dress up, you had to present yourself, very
Mm-hmm.
professionally. And here I was navigating this world now, trying to figure out, okay, how do I move up and how do I prove
Mm-hmm.
myself? And they gave me that opportunity to showcase my skills, showcase my learning capabilities. And
Mm-hmm.
I found that I quickly was moving up with this company.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that one of the things that my parents instilled in me growing up was do what you have to do to get the job done. There was never an excuse. There was never a well, it's too hard or
Mm-hmm.
I'm too I'm not educated enough. It was always do what you have to do to get the job done. And my mom and dad were those type of workers where they clocked in, clocked out, they put in heavy hours, but I never saw them move up in a career. I never saw them get promoted or oh, I'm this new classification. And to me that stood out because I didn't want to be at the same level for
Yeah.
20, 40 years.
Okay.
So with this company, I found that as long as I can meet the expectation and I have the right coaching, I'm going to do well. And
Mm-hmm.
when I started off, I didn't have the right coaching. I didn't have the right manager. I had the manager that only pointed out your errors, only pointed out what you were doing wrong. And
Yeah.
it was very defeating. It was very, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to make
Mm-hmm.
it. And I struggled with that for a long time. And then I was trying to figure out what are my next steps? Do I need to leave this career? Is this maybe not for me?
Mm-hmm.
And oh, excuse me. Luckily, she ended up leaving on her own.
Oh.
She went to another she left the company and I got a manager that was one that looked to develop me, was one to look into each individual
Mm-hmm.
and later would be the one to shape how I would lead my team when I would get in
Okay.
that role because I loved how she individually worked with me. She sat with me, she asked me questions, she focused on me to see where I was coming from when I was looking at a problem or a concern. And
Okay.
once I got locked in, it was nonstop, and I just kept getting promoted and promoted and promoted, and I quickly found myself moving up in this career. So it was a lot of the experience and being willing to learn those new things and not being afraid to take on a new challenge that got me into the industry.
Okay. So you got into the industry. Like you mentioned, it could be luck. It could be personality, right? It could have been something, right? Because at
Maybe
the
a
end of the
little bit,
day,
maybe a little bit.
you still had to apply. You still had to interview. I'm assuming, right? And you
Yes,
still
still
had
had
to
an
give
interview.
them a reason to say this individual brings something to the table. Now,
Absolutely.
what once you got in there, right? Because you did briefly touch on it,
Hmm.
which is that once you got into, that's when it really had to be about putting in the work, and it also had to be about how do you move up. Because I'm assuming, do you have a
Yes.
degree now or no?
No, still no degree. Now
So still no.
I've still no degree.
Okay.
I've gone back to college and
Okay.
I've taken classes here and there because I'm just slowly building to it. I'm a junior,
Okay.
technically,
Hmm.
but still working towards it. But it hasn't become a main focus anymore because now with my experience, that has
Hmm.
been the degree. That the 24
Okay.
years it speaks for itself now. But I still want it for myself. The degree is something I want to get. Um,
Okay.
so what I found is 7 years in my career, the with no degree, that's where I hit kind of a wall again. And it was,
Mm.
okay, are you going to stay at this service and just be this senior associate and that's the next 25 years, 30 years of your
Hmm.
life? Or do you want something else? And I was like, I don't want to stay here. I want something else. I want to keep moving up. I didn't want to lose that drive to
Yeah.
be better and be afraid to be better. So I started putting in applications, but I did it internally. I wasn't looking externally. I was looking internally because I wanted to stay with the
Mm.
company. And I went to these final interviews for IT, and then just came in second place. Didn't get it. It's like, oh
Mm.
shucks. Then I went into the advisor side to be more working with the broker dealers and
Hmm.
came in second place again. But
Mm.
in that interview, in those discussions, I had mentioned that I had worked on this team called the rollover team. And the rollover team would utilize this outside website that was for 401k plans that were administered by the company, but we used another party's services and I was very familiar with that website and that production. So it just so happened that one of the people that interviewed me
Hmm.
was the senior manager for that department. She called me back
Okay.
and she said, Ruben, you mentioned you worked with this, and I know you were really applying for this. but would you consider looking at coming onto the 401k side and being a what they call the conversion associate, which is where you set up the 401ks from the very start to the very finish with them. So you bring
Okay.
them in as new and you set them up. And I thought, well, hey, this is a great opportunity. They're seeking me. I already got a leg up. Why
Mm-hmm.
not give it a shot? And
Yeah.
I accepted the position, and I ended up getting into that position.
Okay.
It was like I was in school all over again. I was learning from the start what the process was. I'd known a little bit of things, but I was learning now the setup from the very beginning to the very end, and it was
Mm-hmm.
nerve-wracking. Um, but I didn't give up. I never gave up. I never felt that I wouldn't get better. I wouldn't achieve it. I always looked at tomorrow's a new day.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow is going to be a new start. So if I have a bad day, doesn't mean the next day is going to be bad. It just means that that day was bad and I need to move
Mm-hmm.
forward. So I kept that mentality and pushed through. And then within I think 2 years in that career, instead of being a conversion associate, I switched over to what they call a relationship manager. So
Mm-hmm.
still same department, but what I did was I was given a group of plans that they only contacted me. I was their main contact, and I had as
Okay.
many as 80 401k plans that I was managing on
Mm.
a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
80 plans, and they were calling me with their issues or concerns or
Mm-hmm.
testing, and it was wonder. I loved it. It was one of my favorite jobs. Um, it had its challenges and its frustrations, just like any other job, but it was
Yeah.
something where I felt that I was important because I was being assigned to these people as a representative of the company. I was that representative. It felt that I was important, and that's something that I had wanted to offer to the company, where I was an asset, where I was important. And going in this career, once again, this is about 5 years into the career, I started hitting that plateau again, and
Mm.
there was no moving up, and
Yeah.
I was just okay. Well, what about a manager? Okay, well, we just don't see you as a manager. And I was like, okay, well, what about the sales side again? We just don't see you in the sales. And I wasn't even given a chance. It was like at this point, leadership had changed. Our
Mm-hmm.
senior leadership had changed, and we started noticing that we were no longer names with the company. We were numbers. We were just another number.
Oh.
And you
Okay.
could see it. You could see that shift. You could just
Mm-hmm.
see it. It wasn't that day to day where you could even talk to your leaders or your senior leaders like you used to. It was almost only if you get an appointment or only if you're chosen for something.
Mm.
And and I thought, well, I get that that's how a lot of companies run and make it, but is that what I want to do? Is that where
Yeah.
I want to be? At this point, a lot of laws actually started changing. They started coming up with new acts that were impacting 401ks and how they're administered. Uh, During the time I was in the department, I was there when 9/11 happened, so I saw a lot of change in the industry after that,
Mm-hmm.
specifically where we had to verify people's accounts. We had to make sure that we had social security numbers, that these were not accounts that were potentially even being used for terror. There was a lot of the secure. I forget I don't want to say Secure Act, but there was an act like that had come about, and we had to Pension Protection Act, sorry, the PPA,
Okay.
and I think that was the act that came in, and we had to upgrade security and upgrade verification processes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I saw was as I'm helping these company make these changes, now I deal with it every day, right? I'm day in, day out with this stuff. So to me, this is no challenge. This is no issue. But
Mm-hmm.
companies that had not experienced this before were struggling to understand these rules, these regulations that they had to abide by.
Yeah.
And that's when I started looking at, you know what, there may be an opportunity to work for a corporation directly to just manage their retirement plan. And that's it. That just you go
Mm.
in and you're the day-to-day contact. And this isn't something that had really been done or I had seen. Um, if it was done, those people were more like HR contacts and they did
Yeah.
everything and then they did a little bit of retirement, but they were not specialists in it.
Mm.
So I started beefing up my resume. I started this is where now I had experience. I had 14 years at this company in retirement with 7 years focused on 401ks. And I thought, this is my degree right now. And if I can sell this as my degree, I got a shot.
Okay.
Sure enough, put in at a couple of different companies. I got a call back and went and met with them and interviewed and quickly it was almost like me interviewing them first because it was okay. Well, how's your plan set up? What's your design? How have you been
Mm-hmm.
administering your testing? I was the one that was the expert that they were looking for, and it was me leading that conversation. And after,
Yeah.
I answered their questions as well. Like you said, personality and is in regards to how they felt I fit with that company, but
Mm-hmm.
my education in regards to this retirement world where there is no retirement degree. You can't go to college and ask, can I get a
Mm-hmm.
401k degree? You can become an accountant, you can
Mm-hmm.
become something of that nature, or a business, you can get a business degree, but there's not a, oh, I know how to manage 401ks or investments degree. There's not that
Mm-hmm.
specific degree. So I was bringing my years of experience now as that degree to this company, and they saw the benefit of it, and I got to change careers, and that's when I shifted and started working for the company directly.
Okay, so right now you're not working with that initial company no more, right? You're now working for companies directly.
Yeah, so I left after 14 years. I left
Okay.
Capital Group, and then I went to uh, a small company in San Antonio,
Mm-hmm.
SWBC, Southwest Business Corporation, and I was with them for 3 years, and I managed their retirement plans, and I loved what I did. They were a great company. I loved what I did with them, and just it just so happened that Valero Energy had put out a position for their retirement department. And I
Mm.
knew that they were going to be a bigger plan. They were going to be something that I would get new experiences from because I was dealing with what they call a mid-sized plan, and this was going to be a mega plan and a really big
Mm.
plan. So I put in an application, I got an interview, and I got selected, and I got to become the manager there
Mm.
of the financial benefits department. So I oversee a team that does the administration and and any processes. We're the service center for that as well, and they report to me and I report directly to my senior manager and vice president. So it was, moving up to this level of where now I'm overseeing that department and I'm the face of that
Yeah.
department. And just, but I started my career on the phones as a customer service rep.
Yeah. So, and I like that. Again, it ties into what I discussed, which is you find a problem and you become the solution.
Hmm.
And it seems like that's what you're able to do for some companies. And there's a lot of people, because you're 100% correct. There is not a retirement degree. There's finance degrees, there's
Yeah.
statistics, there's things of that nature, but there's not necessarily a retirement expert. And when it comes to retirement, especially with the laws that are currently changing, the
Yes.
change in different legislation up in DC. You got the new president coming in, coming out. They're
Yep.
discussing, well, the new retirement age should be higher, should be lower, should be this, should be
Right.
that. Social Security is always come into question since the last, but 5 to 10 years, right? Is it going to still
It's
keep
been
going
big.
on?
Yeah, it's a big topic. Yeah.
So it's very interesting to for you to say, okay, I see this gap and I'm gonna fill it, and found a lot of success in it. So with that, you before we actually started going live, you talked a little bit about some current endeavors you might be doing that are outside of your job. So what are some of those things? Like I think you mentioned TikTok or your social media or something like that.
Yeah, I
Is
have a
that
couple of
different? Is that
it's
related to or
it's
no?
it's totally different. Yeah, so I
Oh, okay.
think
So let's see
each
what's that about.
yeah, so one of the things like you saw, like you said, just to reference this, that I saw a gap and I filled it, and I've been very fortunate to have
Mm-hmm.
multiple mentors over my career, and it seems like each mentor came in at the right time when I needed them or I
Mm-hmm.
needed guidance. And I mentioned luck earlier, and then I said, well, it probably wasn't luck because one of my managers at the before I left the corporate world of mutual funds, she
Mm-hmm.
had told me, my husband always says there's no such thing as luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Okay.
And for some reason, that stuck with me. And I thought, okay, well, then I need to prepare myself so that when the opportunity becomes available, that
Mm.
I'm the right candidate. And as I got my experience, I kept building that and updating my resume. And then I would look at what companies were looking for and customize that to my resume to show that I could fit that role. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I was able to move forward in that and utilize my experience as my degree and push that as this is my
Mm-hmm.
certification that I know what I'm doing. Because if you look into it, I mean, if you analyze it, I basically have studied in the retirement industry for now 24 years,
Correct.
and not through a school, not through any type of
Mm-hmm.
certification, just me myself digging into this year by year by
Mm-hmm.
year, and now have been able to say, hey, I'm a certified personal certified, so to speak, retirement expert just by reading and studying every day on my own, and
Yeah.
now working in that industry.
Hey,
So
you
then
could be a YouTube University professor. I'm just saying, you know.
maybe one day. Well, that's where, I think as with all these changes and everything, I also had to have an outlet because it does get stressful.
Yeah.
And during COVID, TikTok happened, right? For now, TikTok
Yes.
was already around. TikTok was already around, and I was like, I'm not gonna mess with this. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
And one day I had a friend and she messaged me and she said, "Hey Ruben, you should really check it out. I think you're going to think it's funny." And I thought, "Okay,
Mm-hmm.
why not?" So signed up for it, looked at it, and I was watching these little clips and I think what attracted me initially was it was just people with a phone every day, just everyday people doing some
Yeah.
things and putting some stuff out there. And they were just having fun and there was no it didn't seem like there was judgment. There was more of a support group. And then you would have,
Mm.
your occasional trolls, but it seemed like more
Yeah.
supportive. And it started off with, okay, well, I'll do a little something. I'll do a little skit. And then one day, I thought, well, when I was a kid and I was young, I used to write poetry and I love to rhyme and I love to tell stories. What if I made a parody? And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
what if I make a song using the hits that we grew up with, and I talk about some ailments that we have now? Because you get a bad back as you get older,
Yeah.
you get gas, you get heartburn, and I thought, but if I do it to something like with Naughty by Nature or Dr. Dre, maybe it'll sound cooler and it doesn't sound like two
Mm-hmm.
old people. So I did. I started putting out these little parody raps and started talking about having heartburn and my knees cracking and my back cracking
Mm-hmm.
and I have to take ibuprofen and I had to get a colonoscopy and little did I know that I was going to reach my audience of
Mm-hmm.
fellow Gen Xers out there that thought it was funny and were going through this. And it took a little while, but I think once I had one video that went viral, and as soon as
Mm-hmm.
it did, it lit up my account, and I went
Mm.
from I started off, oh, I have 1,000 followers, oh, I have 5,000, oh, I have 10,000, and then it was 20, 30, 40, and then when it went viral,
Mm.
it just started spiking, and I got up to I
Mm.
think right now I'm at 255,000 followers on TikTok for Ruben E's parodies.
Ruben East parodies. All right.
Ruben E's parodies, and I started messing with that, and I did that for a long time, and then I moved it to Facebook
Mm-hmm.
just to see if there were people there, and I found like another 173,000 people that enjoy it on Facebook too, or that continue to follow me.
Mm-hmm.
And but after a while of doing these songs, I had to ask myself, what's your goal with this? Are you
Mm-hmm.
trying? Do you even have a goal with this? And I thought, well, if I had the opportunity to write lyrics, that would be cool, or work in advertising, but I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that's going to happen. And even if it is, I don't know that that's really what I want.
Okay.
And it wasn't like it was producing money or anything. I wasn't getting paid to do this. It wasn't, I mean, I get gifts. I would get like, sponsors would send me little gifts like Starbucks. I did a wrap for them and they sent me a little gift package with
Okay.
coffee and a mug. And then
Mm-hmm.
I did a ranch, Hidden Valley Ranch song, and I got a ranch sweater and, little
Yeah.
things like that. But I wasn't making this whole other career that you see online. People, oh, now I'm an influencer and I'm making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I didn't have any of that luck. Um, I unfortunately I don't think I have, the face or body that they're probably looking for. So it's like, well, and at the time I was even 100 pounds heavier than I am now.
Oh, okay.
So you're big, I'm a big guy doing these rafts, and I,
Yeah.
I wasn't, I was like, no, I'm not that face.
Yeah.
So I started asking myself, what is the next thing? What do you want to do? And I happened to find if you've ever watched the story Flaming Hot and about the Cheetos, hot
Yes.
Cheetos, and how
Yes.
that
Yes.
started, right?
Yep.
And he talks about I was janitor. I was just a janitor at Frito.
Mm-hmm.
I had an idea. I pitched it. I ended up becoming an executive with this company. Well, that gentleman followed me on TikTok, and I followed him back, and I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. This is,
Mm,
somebody who's had a story made out of his life, and who has made a difference, and shown that I don't have to have a degree. Same thing as me. I don't have to have a degree to get
mm-hmm.
to this level.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to him and I just said, hey, when I was younger, I did speech and debate. I speak at conferences in regards to retirement topics. What advice would you have if somebody's trying to tell their story and help influence others?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, man, write a book. Write a book about your experiences. Write a book about what you went through. He goes, once you write a book, it changes everything. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, thanks so much. I appreciate that. And I was like, okay, but how do you write a book? How do you,
Yeah.
it's so daunting when you hear somebody give you a path, right? But they're not telling you the steps, and they can't tell you the steps because there's not a how to on do this, and then tell
Mm-hmm.
your story. Nobody knows how you want to tell your story. And I thought, what do I even do? So
Mm-hmm.
I did the first thing I thought was I'm going to pull up a Word document and I'm just going to write some stuff.
Okay.
So I did. I pulled up a Word document and I started writing just, oh, well, I started my career doing this or I started doing that. And then every time I did it, it was easier and
Mm-hmm.
easier. And then next thing I knew, I was 13 pages into my story and I went, whoa. I was like, I'm not even a quarter of the way done of what I want to tell, and I'm 13 pages in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have a book. I have an actual story.
Okay.
And this started with my career, like how I made my career without a degree. But I've also had struggles with mental health, and I've had
Mm-hmm.
struggles with physical and psychological abuse growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And during this time, I was dealing with a lot of that also, and going through some steps and processes to handle that because I wasn't on the right. I finally, a couple years back, I finally said I need to take medication. I need to take something because I
Okay.
was on the I was on the dark path. I was
Mm-hmm.
it was I had a end of life plan set up. I knew what I was going to do. I knew when I was going to do it. It was just a matter of doing it. And then what was scary was I hadn't told anybody about it. So I knew that it was real, that it's going to happen. I'm going to hit a point where I'm at my lowest of low and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
follow through on this. I'm going to do it because I'm hurting so much. And finally, talked to a doctor. We looked at medications, and then they said you also need to do therapy. Therapy is a huge part of this. And
Mm.
I finally sat with my wife, and she actually picked a therapist for me, and she helped me read through what their accreditations were and what their experience was, and turned out to be best decision I made. Best
Okay.
decision because she helped me mentally get things back on track and deal with some of the things that I didn't even realize were an issue. I didn't realize were things from my past. I didn't realize they were things that I dealt with growing up with the physical and psychological abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So as I started writing, I had a moment where I felt, you know what, I think I have another story to tell. I think I have
Mm-hmm.
something else to tell. And that's when I started writing the next book, and it started the same way. Let me just write a couple things, and then one paragraph turned into 5 pages, and it was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm not even a quarter of the way done, and I still have a lot that I want to say. So, I think what I think it's what's his Richard, I forget his last name. I don't know if it was Martinez. I think, and I apologize for getting the name wrong,
Yeah.
but what I think he was saying was just start the process.
Yeah.
Because as I started the process, I think that's where I found, okay, now I'm getting a flow. I see where I could tell a story from here. I do have a story, and I think that's a thing that a lot of us don't give ourselves our own selves credit for, is
Mm-hmm.
that just because we're not so-called famous or in the mainstream doesn't mean that you don't have a story to tell or something that can help or relate to
Mm-hmm.
others. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I liked about your podcast when I saw you were putting out there looking for guests, and I went and looked at your podcast, and you were talking to everyday people, and I was like, this is perfect. This is what
Mm-hmm.
we need. We need more of this. We need more people telling their stories, because these are the stories that we don't hear about, that really are inspiring, that people are currently living and still getting to that next level. They don't have to be the movie star or get millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to have that life to make it. They can just make it in life
Yeah.
doing what they're doing, or finding a new career. And and I thought, now that I'm on this track, my goal is just to get my story out there now. So it became um, a goal of, okay, TikTok was fun, but that was just for fun. We
Mm-hmm.
we're really trying to get your story out, and you need to talk to people about mental health and your journey in your career, so that they know they don't have to settle for, oh, I'm just going to get a check and not do anything else, and stay here for 20, 30 years, barely get a retirement. And it was, I'm sorry, Richard Montañez
Yeah.
is his name. So Mr. Montañez, I think that's what he was just saying. Just start
Yeah.
telling your story. And I found, as I took that start, it started shaping. And of course, the next thing is, how do you publish? How do you do that? But
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that. To me, that's a step I'm not there at yet, and I don't need to worry about it yet. I need to finish this process first. And I think as
Okay.
long as we take those steps in our lives, no matter what we're going through, we deal with what's in the now. And as long as we deal with what's in the now, it'll let us get ready for the next step, and then we can make ourselves better and continue to move forward.
Awesome. So before we close out, right? We've been going at it for a little bit, and first and
Hmm.
foremost, yes, you're 100% correct. So I actually started this show because there's too many of my old friends. I would have a conversation after seeing them again, and they're like, "Oh man, everything you gotta say, like you should either write a book or you should do a show, something, because all that information needs to get out there." So that's how I initially started, and then you would be surprised how many people feel that they're not worth a conversation, and that's what
Yes.
I try to bring out of them is like, no, 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 you have a lot to bring to the table, you just haven't sat down yet, you
Right.
know.
Exactly.
So I do appreciate that you did catch that. So but since I do want to pull from your expertise before we close out, right? If you were to
Sure.
say the top 5 things that you should do to prepare for retirement, what would
Hmm.
they be?
So one of the things I would say is, never feel that you can't do it. A lot of people just feel hopeless, and they're like, I can't do nothing. Start saving something. Just
Okay.
a little something. It doesn't have to be a huge percentage. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's got to hurt." It doesn't have to hurt. Just
Hmm.
start putting aside what you're doing. Because really what you're doing first is, it's not saving for retirement. It's just creating a savings. You're trying to create a savings so that if something happens, that you have some money to fall back on. And it
Okay.
doesn't have to be in the stock market. It doesn't have to be in these mutual funds, or investing in stock. A lot of that is gibberish to us. We don't know what that is, and we're scared. And I don't want to put you in a position where you're going to lose all your money. So start off something simple. I can go to my bank and I can put money in a savings account and um, get 4%, 3% rate of
Hmm.
return. Right now the rates of return on some of those accounts they're offering are much better. Before we weren't even at 1%. Now it's gone
Correct.
up, but definitely, allow yourself to save, and your savings can be small. If one day you decide, I'm not going to get that Starbucks drink, that's $7. Move that $7 to your
Hmm.
savings.
Okay.
Quickly do it in that moment, because if you do it in that moment, you'll take care of it. You'll start building it, and before you know it, you're going to have this little egg that you're building, and you didn't realize you could do it. And
Okay.
I would say, never give up hope, even when you have to stop saving because you have hard times, because you gotta dip into that savings because the car broke down. You gotta buy a washer dryer. Don't give up. That's why you made that savings. You made that savings to help you and continue to do it. And as long as you come back to that and you don't allow yourself to get defeated, you're gonna have a nice little nest egg. And
Mhm.
don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask questions of anybody that you can. That is, there's a lot of information out there online. There's a lot of ways to even learn about simple investments if you just to get started. So don't be
Mhm.
afraid to ask questions. You're not gonna look anyway. I know we're afraid we're going to look dumb. We're going to look silly. And I can tell you right now, when I'm sitting at a table and I'm talking to an advisor and he's talking about stocks, and I don't typically deal with stocks. We deal with mutual funds typically.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I don't know anything about that. Please tell me more. Help
Mhm.
educate me. I allow them to mentor me if they're willing to do that
Mm.
because the more education I have, the better I'm going to be. And I suck it up. I just soak that information in, and that becomes, another little trade that helps me be better in this industry. So
Okay.
keep learning, save little by little. When you make that savings, put it right away. Never give up. And if you have to stop, start again. Don't be afraid to start again.
Mm.
Those would be my
Awesome.
top things.
That's the top things. Awesome, man. Well, I do appreciate you for coming on the show, giving all this wisdom, implementing how you were able to find that gap and fill it, and actually help a lot of people that believe that they can't do it just because they don't have a degree. And that's one of the I feel the biggest enemies to somebody is themselves,
It is.
you know?
Very
But
defeating, but you can do it. I'm telling you, find the gap. You can create it. It does just because it's not existing doesn't mean it can't be there. You can create it, and that's what I did. I was like, there's got to be something, and I thought if I can pitch it to a company at least, we might be able to
yeah,
work something. And now it's a main job. It's something a lot of companies look for.
awesome. I will thank you very much for coming in, and hopefully we'll get you back on.
All right, most welcome. Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Now, there you have it, folks. Another great episode with the great Ruben Escobedo. If you haven't by yet, make sure you hit that subscribe so every time we drop a new episode, you are the first to get notified. Also, as you should know by now, we have made a connection with Solutions Peptides, one of the leading companies in peptides for research purposes only, of course. If you need to get the best prices your peptide journey to begin your peptide therapy, please hit me up, hit the link below, and we will get you started and getting taken care of. Once again, your host, Ramsey, we're